Welcome in. If you haven't seen this movie, that's okay, because I actually expect that a lot of people will not have seen this movie. I only have because I love Mel Gibson so much, and as a kid, this was one of the only Mel Gibson movies that we could really watch because it doesn't have any sexual stuff, it more has language and violence. But that's a long enough intro. Let's review Ransom.
Give me back my spoilers!
This movie has been made unavailable to rent or buy on any streaming services in the United States. Or online stores like iTunes. You can only buy the DVDs they cannot control. This is directed by Ron Howard, who coincidentally was a child star. So the fact that he made this, having come out of Hollywood, it could actually be saying a lot by him having made this movie with Mel Gibson. Gibson did an interview in 1998, 2 years after this movie came out, in which he calls Hollywood out and he calls them horrible names. And you don't just call people names like that unless you've seen some despicable stuff from them. He's not disgruntled. He was never outcast from Hollywood up until The Passion of the Christ. But before then, in 1998, he didn't have a reason. They weren't mean. They weren't bad to him. Anyways, okay. So for our cast, we have Mel Gibson as Tom Mullen, Rene Russo as Kate Mullen, Gary Sinise as Detective Jimmy Shaker, Brawley Nolte as Sean Mullen, Liev Schreiber as Clark Barnes, Donnie Wahlberg as Cubby Barnes, Lily Taylor as Maris Connor, Evan Handler as Miles Roberts, Delroy Lindo as Agent Lonnie Hawkins. Jose Zuniga is in this movie, and it's really interesting connection there because he was just in Sound of Freedom. Yes, I'm relating this movie Ransom to Sound of Freedom that just released on July 4th. We open on an ambulance rushing through the city with its sirens on in an overhead shot, and the camera actually tilts up, and I'm not usually attached to title sequences or title cards shown on the screen, but the Ransom title card is my favorite card. I love how each piece of the letters come in super slowly to form the full words. I'm not sure that I've seen another movie do that. There's probably some out there though. We've entered this party. It's a celebration for the Mullen family, and everybody in attendance gathers around the TV to watch Tom Mullen's new commercial. We're introduced to Kate and Sean in this sequence, and they kind of roll their eyes and make fun of Tom for the commercial, but they seem like a playful family, and just the three of them, and it's very clear that they are very rich. So it cuts from the party, and all of a sudden shows up in this bed, in this dingy, empty room, metal handcuffs sitting on the bed. Then it goes back to the party, sparing no time showing us the threat of the movie. Light and dark, classical music at the party, hard rock in the empty bedroom. As a thug named Miles throws a mattress onto the bed, we see a finger on his tattoo as he does so, and there's a waitress back at the party with a tattoo on her neck, and Sean Mullins notices it at the party. There's a reporter at the party who aggressively questions Tom about some of his past business dealings. And Tom obviously has the man escorted out, but it shows us that Tom Mullen might be a controversial figure in the city. He could even become a target because of that, and he does become a target. The man targeting him is a corrupt police officer. Our introduction to the main antagonist, Detective Jimmy Shaker, brilliantly played by Gary Sinise, is that he's stopping two other cops from being too rough on a perp. He's stepping in between them, trying to calm them down, which is interesting given what we see of him later on. He sends his thugs out to a kids' outdoor science fair that's going on, that's being actually run by the Mullins. Kate's up there running the show, introducing the categories. And Tom helped his son build some remote control hot air balloon contraption with a video camera that's installed on it. At some point during the science fair, Sean Mullen is off on his own flying the hot air balloon. Tom and Kate are off doing their own individual things. And in that scenario, they're counting on everything being okay. Danger probably doesn't even cross their mind, or even a possibility that it could be a possibility. Sean gets taken without his parents even realizing it. Tom just kind of sees the hot air balloon floating in the sky, but he doesn't see his son. He didn't see where he went. The increasing panic and desperation that Tom and Kate are experiencing as they look for their son, it has to be a feeling that only a parent could understand. They're also trying to keep it together because they're in public and they don't want to, even though they're internally freaking out. And we see a van driving away that we can only assume Sean's in there. Tom even runs right in front of the van as he's crossing the street, and the bad guys are just like, So then Tom gets an email, him and his wife open it, and it's of their son handcuffed to that empty bed. And there's a deeply disguised voice giving them demands for $2 million. No media, no police involved, or they kill their son. Man, Mel Gibson and Rene Russo have such raw emotional reactions to that video they're seeing. They completely sell the performances, and even in the next scene where they have to argue about what to do. They can't cast blame on each other, and they have to break the demands and go to the police. They go to the FBI, actually, risking their son's life even further if they don't comply with these demands. But then to not comply with the law and get the police involved is also super risky. To just pay the $2 million and then be like, oh, we're good now. There's no honor among thieves, so trusting these people to keep their word and not tie up loose ends after receiving the money, that's like, So they call the FBI, and an investigative team has to enter their home as repairmen, just in case the Mullen residence is being surveilled. A call comes in and everybody takes their positions, they turn on all the recording gear, only for it to be Tom's secretary that calls. But he's so shaken that he can't even hang up the phone properly. He becomes super emotional with Agent Hawkins, and Hawkins knows not to take this personally. Back at where Sean is being held, Cubby is he's the moral one out of the bad guys, because he feeds Sean. He tells him some jokes. He takes compassion on the kid, even though he is following the bad guy's plan. He doesn't totally agree with how they're going about it. A little bit later, Tom has a conversation with Agent Hawkins, and he confesses to him that he did pay off the gangster in order to level up his business. And this gangster, Jackie Brown, is now in jail, even though Tom Mullen is not, when they both broke the law. Jackie Brown is obviously the first person in Tom's mind of who could have done this, who would have at all wanted to do this and hurt Tom's family. Agent Hawkins is like, do you want to go talk to him? So they make a trip, they make a visit to go see Jackie Brown, and Tom flat out asks him, where's my son? And Jackie Brown gets so offended by the assumption that he had something to do with the kidnapping, he flips out and even attacks Tom for the accusation because he genuinely had nothing to do with it. He has no money, no connections, and he has 6 kids of his own that he would give his life for, and that he hasn't seen since he's been in jail because of Tom. Tom feels kind of bad, and Agent Hawkins is like, oops. Cubby walks into a convenience store to grab some cereal and some movies for the kid, and Detective Jimmy Shaker just happens to be in that same store conducting police business. And he stares at Cubby and just watches him the whole time. At first glance, it just looks like Shaker's keeping an eye on another potential perp. But then we find out that they actually know each other. And they're conducting business together right now from the opposite sides of the law. Shaker doesn't want to see any of his thugs out and about while they're conducting this business, just in case somebody could spot them and be a witness in a legal case later. He's extremely menacing, even to the own thugs that he's paying to help him. Back at the Mullen home, they get another phone call. This time it is the man that they've been waiting to hear from, Jimmy Shaker, with his voice disguised. They set up a meeting, and Jimmy says a sentence that's going to come back to bite him later. He says, shouldn't be a problem. And the way that he says it, Tom becomes hyper familiar with it, and Tom does his best to try and follow all the demands, jumping in the pool to kill the mics. But he has the FBI tracking him too, just so they can step in if anything goes wrong. Tom is in the car with all the money, and there's a walkie-talkie for him to communicate with Jimmy Shaker. And Tom realizes that Jimmy Shaker has to be somewhere in traffic with him, driving in the same direction. And they have this casual conversation, and Tom just asks him why. Why me? Why are you doing this? And it is because he paid off that gangster, although Jimmy Shaker is just an observer of that situation. He has no personal beef with Tom at all. He just figured out that Tom Mullen buys his way out of trouble, so he's going to make him do it again. At the location, Cubby is the one that they send out to go get the money, but he doesn't know anything about giving Tom an address in exchange for the money, which is what Tom is expecting because that's what Shaker told him. So the FBI intervenes and they kill Cubby. Clark, Cubby's brother, even sees this happen, which now means for Tom and Kate that Shaker's probably going to want revenge for this by killing their son. They become extremely emotional, and Tom even punches Agent Hawkins because the FBI was not supposed to intervene. Clark is also really emotional about it too. He just lost his brother unnecessarily. Clark is also the connection that the FBI needs to find people in Clark's inner circle. Tom has this great scene where he comes to the conclusion that paying is not the best option to get their son back. This is now a chess game because Cubby was never given instructions to give Tom the address. That little detail alerts Tom and says that Sean is going to live as long as I do not pay. Meaning once they pay, it's over for their son. He's just trying to convince his wife and Agent Hawkins of this too, but they don't see it. They do not agree. Tom has this epiphany while he's on his way to another rendezvous. He sees a bunch of TVs in a store playing the same news channel, and it's a story about his family. So he tells Shaker, all right, change of plans, turn on your TV in an hour, because Tom is about to flip the script. Since Tom Mullen has so much money, he puts up the $2 million as a bounty on Shaker's head, meaning he will pay the money to anybody in the city who finds Shaker. This makes everybody around Tom really hate him for that decision because they just don't think how he thinks. Agent Hawkins weaponizes the information that Tom gave him about Jackie Brown paying him off, and he tells his wife. So Agent Hawkins is playing a little game here too. Kate, finding this out, propels her into taking it upon herself to go meet up with Shaker and try to negotiate. But Shaker attacks her instead. Tom gets so mad at this happening that he walks right outside, right where all the news channels are stationed, and he ups the bounty by $2 million, making it now $4 million. Even Shaker's own crew starts to get real tempted by that dollar. How could anybody not consider getting that kind of a paycheck for turning somebody in? Shaker calls Tom back. Understandably, he's a little pissed. His whole plan just went out the window, and this turns into an ugly phone call real quick, with both Tom and Shaker screaming at each other, and Shaker shoots a bullet right next to Sean, ending the phone call, which sends Tom and his wife into a crying fit. I've never seen another actor emote in the way that Mel Gibson does in this scene when he thinks he just led to his son's death. It is so sad. Shaker's crew is either splitting up or contemplating suicide. Like, they really don't know what to do. And Shaker has this epiphany that Tom doesn't know who this guy is. He definitely doesn't know he's a cop. So Detective Jimmy Shaker can act like he caught the bad guys and collect the $4 million for himself, claiming to have killed the mastermind behind it all. So Shaker calls in a bogus call and then draws his gun on Miles and Clark, shooting them both and killing his own girlfriend too in this process. Then he rescues the kid, having been shot in the line of duty, so now Shaker's a city hero too. They rescue Sean, but under false pretenses. They are about to reward the bad guy with $4 million for falsely rescuing their son, when he was really just about to take the king and call checkmate. If it wasn't for Sean recognizing Shaker's voice and peeing himself in front of his dad, Tom would have given him the money. But what solidifies it for him is that Shaker says, shouldn't be a problem. And it clicks for Tom that this is the bad guy I've been dealing with this whole time. Shaker sees that he's put it together, and he pulls out his gun. He wants Tom to take him to the bank and give him his money finally. But Tom just wants to get out in public with him now so they can brawl, which is exactly what they do. They have a brutal fight scene in the middle of the street, ending in cops surrounding them both, and Shaker being shot to death by Agent Hawkins. And that's the end of the movie. It ends right there. Man, I forgot how engaging the plot, shot composition, the camera movements, the editing, the score, the writing, the acting, they're all on point. Ron Howard is the man and an underrated actor. No director. He made a quality movie with high stakes and a thrilling game of chess being played by the two main characters. It is such a good movie. Anybody who hasn't seen it is missing out. Anyways, that is my review of Ransom. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace, everybody. See you next week.